I used to think every family had a favorite punching bag. Then I realized most families eventually grow out of it. Mine apparently treated it like an Olympic sport. For the last 10 years, I had been the undisputed champion of family disappointment. Every Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthday, barbecue, and random Sunday dinner somehow turned into an investigation of my life choices. So, have you found a real job yet? You still sitting at home all day? Your cousin bought a second house. My friend's son became a doctor. The comments never stopped. The funny thing was that I actually worked harder than anyone in the family. I just couldn't tell them what I did. Whenever someone asked, I would simply say, I work online. That answer only made things worse. To my family, working online translated directly into unemployed. My mother especially enjoyed reminding me of my supposed failures. She had a talent for comparing me to literally anyone. A successful cousin. A neighbor's kid. A guy she'd met once at a grocery store. If they had a paycheck, they were somehow doing better than me. Meanwhile, I spent most of my days running meetings across multiple star systems, negotiating contracts worth more money than my entire hometown would see in a century, and solving corporate disasters before breakfast. But explaining that would create questions I wasn't ready to answer. So I kept quiet. Privacy had become a habit. Success had become a secret. The only person who knew everything was my girlfriend. And that was partly because she technically worked for me. Lyra wasn't human. The first time we met, she was representing a powerful alien technology consortium during a merger negotiation. The second time we met, she completely destroyed my arguments during a board meeting. The third time we met, we accidentally spent 6 hours arguing about coffee. A year later we were inseparable. She was brilliant, funny, beautiful, and far more patient than I deserved. Especially when it came to my family. They don't know you, she told me while we drove to Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, they know me. No. They know the version they invented. I laughed. Trust me. Today's going to be the usual routine. They'll mock you. Absolutely. They'll compare you to everyone else. Without question. And you'll sit there smiling. Probably. She shook her head. I still don't understand humans. Neither do I. That made her laugh. One of my favorite things about Lyra was how fascinated she was by human behavior. She had studied our history, culture, business practices, and entertainment. Yet my relatives remained completely beyond her understanding. According to her, no intelligent species should spend an entire holiday insulting their own family members before eating pumpkin pie. Honestly, I couldn't argue with that logic. As we pulled into my mother's driveway, cars already filled every available space. Relatives crowded the front yard. Children ran around screaming. Someone was burning something on the grill. Normal Thanksgiving chaos. I took a deep breath. Ready? Lyra squeezed my hand. Always. I smiled. For years, she had encouraged me to ignore the insults. To stay patient. To let success speak for itself. And I always had. But this year felt different. Not because I planned to prove anything. Not because I wanted revenge. Mostly because I was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of being treated like a failure. Tired of watching people judge a life they knew nothing about. As we walked toward the house, I noticed something strange. Several relatives were talking excitedly about a huge business acquisition that had dominated the news all week. They had no idea who was responsible for it. No idea who owned the company involved. No idea that the so-called disappointment they were about to ridicule had signed the final approval himself less than 48 hours earlier. I exchanged a glance with Lyra. She gave me a knowing smile. For the first time in years, I had a feeling this Thanksgiving dinner wasn't going to follow the usual script. The moment we stepped into the dining room, I knew something was wrong. At first, I couldn't figure out what it was. The table was enormous, stretching nearly from one end of the room to the other. Plates were arranged neatly. Glasses sparkled under the lights. The turkey sat proudly in the center like it was about to receive an award. Everyone had a place. My mother had a place. My siblings had places. My cousins had places. Even little Timmy, who once attempted to microwave a fork, had a place. Then I counted again. There was no seat for me. I blinked. Maybe someone forgot. Then I noticed my cousin struggling to hold back laughter. My uncle looked suspiciously amused. My sister wouldn't make eye contact. That was never a good sign. "Oh no," I muttered. Lyra followed my gaze. "What's wrong?" I appeared to have been deleted. "What?" I pointed at the table. She examined it carefully. Then her eyes widened. "You don't have a chair?" "Nope." For a moment she seemed genuinely confused. Then she remembered she was dealing with my family. Understanding immediately appeared on her face. Several relatives started snickering. My cousin nearly choked trying not to laugh. Finally my mother entered carrying a bowl of mashed potatoes. She saw me standing there and smiled proudly. Not a warm smile. The kind of smile a supervillain gives before revealing their master plan. "Oh good," she said loudly. "Everyone's here." The room fell silent. I already knew I wasn't going to enjoy whatever happened next. My mother placed the potatoes on the table and dramatically gestured toward the missing chair. "Some people were wondering why there isn't a seat for you." Several relatives burst into laughter. I sighed. Here we go again. My mother folded her arms. "Well, I decided this year we should save seats for people who contribute something." More laughter. Then came the line she had clearly rehearsed. "No seat for disappointments." The entire table exploded. People laughed so hard they had to grab their stomachs. One uncle slapped the table. My cousin nearly spilled his drink. Even my brother looked impressed by the cruelty. I stood there staring at them. Lyra looked horrified. Then confused. Then somehow impressed. "Your species is ruthless," she whispered. "You have no idea." One cousin pointed toward the garage. "There's probably an old folding chair somewhere." Another shouted. "Or he can sit at the kids' table." More laughter. The children looked offended. "Hey!" one kid yelled. "We don't want him." That got another round of applause. I couldn't help laughing a little. At some point the joke had become so ridiculous that it crossed into comedy. My mother finally raised her hand. All right. The room quieted. She looked directly at me. "So tell us." I already knew the question. "What exactly do you do all day?" Everyone leaned forward. For years they had asked. For years I had dodged the answer. Today, for some reason, I felt tired of dodging. Maybe it was the missing chair. Maybe it was 10 years of insults. Maybe it was because I had spent the entire week finalizing the largest acquisition in my company's history. Whatever the reason, something inside me finally clicked. I looked around the table. Then I noticed several newspapers scattered near the kitchen counter. The front page showed the exact business story my relatives had been discussing outside. Perfect. I smiled. A small smile. The kind Lyra immediately recognized. Her eyes widened. "Oh," she whispered. "What?" I know that smile. I glanced at her. "You do? Someone is about to regret something." I turned back toward my family. "Before I answer," I said calmly, "let me ask a question." My mother rolled her eyes. "Fine." I pointed toward the newspaper. "You've all been talking about that acquisition all day, right?" Immediately everyone started nodding. My uncle whistled. "Huge deal. Biggest business story this year. Absolutely massive company. They just bought our family's biggest competitor." Everyone had an opinion. Everyone sounded impressed. I waited until they finished. Then I asked another question. "Do any of you know who owns that company?" The room became quiet. A few people shrugged. My cousin shook his head. "No idea." I smiled. Then I delivered the sentence that would completely destroy Thanksgiving. "I do." My mother rolled her eyes again. "Of course you do." I nodded. No. I mean, I own it. Silence. Complete silence. The kind of silence that appears right before an explosion. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody blinked. Nobody breathed. The entire dining room looked frozen. Then my cousin laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A full, confident laugh. Oh, that's a good one. A few others joined him. My uncle pointed at me. See? That's why we worry about him. More laughter followed. Apparently, becoming a billionaire overnight was considered less believable than me being unemployed. I couldn't even blame them. After 10 years of hiding everything, I had trained them to underestimate me. My mother shook her head. Sweetheart, this isn't the time for jokes. I'm not joking. You own a company worth billions? Technically more than that. The room erupted again. Even the kids were laughing now. One of them asked if I was secretly emperor of the galaxy. I told him he was surprisingly close. That only made things worse. Finally, I pulled out my phone. I opened the corporate announcement. Then I placed it on the table. Nobody looked at it at first. Then my brother leaned forward. His smile slowly disappeared. What the? He grabbed the phone. My cousin looked over his shoulder. Then another cousin. Then my uncle. The laughter stopped one person at a time. The silence returned. This time it felt heavier. My brother stared at me. That's your name? Yes. No way. Yes. My uncle grabbed the phone next. His eyes widened so much I thought he might need medical attention. My mother still looked unconvinced. Until Lyra calmly stepped forward. I can confirm everything. Every head turned toward her. She smiled politely. I'm the Chief Operations Officer. My cousin blinked. Of what? She named the company. The room collectively lost its mind. My uncle dropped his fork. A cousin spilled gravy on himself. Someone accidentally sat on the turkey baster. A child started crying because everyone else looked terrified. It was the most entertaining Thanksgiving I'd ever attended. My mother grabbed the phone. She read the article. Then read it again. Then a third time. Her face cycled through confusion, disbelief, panic, and regret so quickly it looked painful. No. I nodded. Yes. No. Still yes. She looked at Lyra. Then back at me. Then back at Lyra. You work there? Lyra smiled. I help run it. My mother nearly dropped the phone. The funniest part wasn't the shock. It was what happened next. The instant they accepted the truth, every relative transformed into a completely different person. My cousin rushed to the kitchen. Seconds later he returned carrying a chair. No, sit here. Another cousin appeared with a cushion. You should have the comfortable seat. My uncle pulled out a chair. Then another. Then somehow produced a third chair. Pick whichever one you want. That's 3 chairs. You deserve options. I almost laughed myself unconscious. 5 minutes earlier these people wanted me sitting in the garage. Now they were treating me like royalty. The apology competition began immediately. I always knew you'd be successful. You were my favorite cousin. I told everyone you were smart. You've always been special. The lies became increasingly creative. One aunt claimed she had personally predicted my success when I was 7 years old. Another relative said my work ethic was legendary. This was particularly interesting because she had spent the last decade insisting I didn't work. Lyra leaned closer. They are fascinating. They're terrified. I know. It's adorable. I smiled. She slipped her hand into mine beneath the table. The gesture immediately calmed me. Because underneath all the comedy, there had been years of hurt. Years of being dismissed. Years of being treated like I wasn't enough. Yet somehow having Lyra beside me made it impossible to stay angry. Then my uncle made a terrible mistake. So exactly how successful is the company? The room became quiet again. I looked at Lyra. She shrugged. Tell them. I turned back toward my family. The current valuation is approximately 42 billion interstellar credits. Silence. Absolute silence. My mother sat down without meaning to. One cousin physically missed his chair. Another looked like he was calculating how many apologies would equal 42 billion credits. Nobody spoke. Then my grandmother started laughing. Everyone looked at her. She pointed at my mother. You removed a billionaire's chair. The room exploded. Even I couldn't stop laughing. For the next several minutes, nobody discussed the turkey. Nobody discussed football. Nobody discussed politics. The only topic at Thanksgiving was how the family's biggest disappointment had somehow become the most successful person in the room. And judging by the looks on their faces, the realization was hitting them harder than any Thanksgiving dinner ever could. The rest of dinner felt like I had accidentally stepped into an alternate universe. My mother personally served me turkey. Twice. My uncle offered me the last dinner roll. My cousins kept asking if I needed anything. One even brought me a blanket. A blanket. I was sitting indoors. The transformation was so dramatic that even Lyra struggled to keep a straight face. Every few minutes she would catch my eye and immediately look away before she started laughing. The funniest part was watching everyone attempt damage control. My brother suddenly remembered all the times he had defended me. Unfortunately for him, nobody else remembered those moments. Because they had never happened. My aunt claimed she always admired my entrepreneurial spirit. This was the same woman who once called my career a phase. My grandmother laughed so hard she nearly spilled her tea. Eventually dessert arrived. Pumpkin pie, apple pie, cheesecake, and enough sugar to launch a small spacecraft. For the first time all evening, the room became peaceful. Then my mother quietly sat beside me. The humor faded from her face. I owe you an apology. I looked at her. She seemed genuinely sincere. I judged you, she continued. For years. I nodded. You did. I thought I was helping. You weren't. She winced. I know. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she sighed. I should have trusted you. The honesty surprised me. After everything, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Mostly because proving myself had never been the goal. I had wanted respect. Not admiration. Not money. Just respect. I forgive you, I said. Relief immediately appeared on her face. But we're making a new Thanksgiving rule. She raised an eyebrow. What rule? I pointed at the dining room table. Everyone gets a seat. A few relatives overheard. Soon the entire table nodded. Even the children approved. Especially the children. Then Lyra suddenly stood up. I recognized that look immediately. It was the same look she used before major corporate announcements. Which meant she was about to cause trouble. Wonderful. She gently tapped her glass. The room became quiet. I actually have an announcement. Every head turned toward her. She smiled at me. Then she reached into her pocket. My heart skipped. No. No way. She wasn't. She absolutely was. The moment she revealed a small shimmering ring, the entire room gasped. My brain stopped working. For one of the few times in my life, I had no prepared response. Lyra looked directly at me. For 2 years you've been my partner, my best friend, and the most stubborn human in 3 sectors. The family laughed. She wasn't wrong. You built an incredible company. But more importantly, you remained kind when most people would have become bitter. The room became silent. You remind me every day why I fell in love with humanity. I felt my face getting warm. This was not how I expected Thanksgiving to go. Then again, neither was being careless. She held out the ring. So I have a question. I didn't let her finish. Yes. The room exploded. People cheered. Children screamed. Someone dropped a spoon. My grandmother shouted, "About time!" Lyra laughed as I slipped the ring onto her finger. Then she kissed me. The applause somehow became even louder. My mother looked seconds away from tears. My cousins were already demanding invitations. My uncle immediately asked where the wedding would take place. Earth or your homeworld? Lyra smiled mischievously. Both. That answer created complete chaos. Everyone started talking at once. What do aliens eat at weddings? Do they have dancing? Can humans attend? Will there be spaceships? The children were especially excited about the spaceships. As the room descended into happy madness, I leaned back and looked around the table. The same table where I had arrived without a chair. The same table where I had spent years being mocked. And now everyone was laughing together. Not at someone. With someone. That felt different. Better. Success hadn't changed who I was. Money hadn't changed who I was. The only thing that had changed was that people finally saw me. As the arguments about wedding invitations continued, my grandmother raised her glass. Remember this next year. Everyone looked at her. She pointed at my mother. Never remove the successful kid's chair. The entire room burst into laughter, including my mother. And for the first time in a very long time, it felt like I truly had a place at the table.